Colombia is in South America. It's a country of 20 million inhabitants, of whom just 1% are tribal Indians. The Cuiva are a group of nomadic hunters who once roamed the plains which run eastwards from the Andes to the Orinoco. Today, their territory is restricted to a small area between the rivers Meta and Casanare. In Colombia, only 600 Cuiva are left, and across the border in Venezuela, there are perhaps another 400. Early in 1970, a white man and 2 Cuiva Indians made a journey up the river Agua Clara. Their aim was to visit a small group of Cuiva who hitherto had avoided all contact with white people. Guayana, the older man, had relatives in this group, but he hadn't seen them for 5 years. He'd been afraid to pass through white settlers' land on the lower reaches of the river. Now, with Bernard Arcon, a French-Canadian anthropologist who'd been living with his people for the past 18 months, he felt safe enough to go.
If I was to make a film about these people, I would just, I think, put the camera down and let it roll for the whole length of the film. And what you would see, most likely, is a man just sitting in his hammock, yawning, scratching his nose, laughing to his children, and maybe shouting after his wife. And there, maybe for the first time in history, you would have seen these people as simply human beings. People who do scratch their nose and laugh at their children, and shout at their wives. They're not always just taking drugs and dancing and hunting and running around naked in South America. That to me would be a first in history. A first in history, much more important than making first contact with some group up some kind of, white man made it again, great explorer, yes sir. And this to me has never been done.
There are many settlers downriver, far away. One of them has a house quite near. I've seen it. He has cows. He's evil. He never comes here. At first I was amazed by the fact that these people can
kill fish with bows and arrows. When you think of, you know, is it called reflection of water? I mean, the fish is not where you see it, right? And you have to calculate how deep it is and shoot it like that. I was saying, how incredible. I was amazed by that. But after 2 years, I'm amazed by the fact that they simply live just the way I live.
Nhìn ra đi. Nhìn ra đi. Nhìn ra đi.
Some anthropologists these days talk about the hunting and gathering society as the original and the real affluent society. I know that the Cuiva here will spend something like 15 or 16 hours a day just sitting in a hammock, chatting with neighbors, joking a lot, singing, and his work day is indeed very brief, much, much briefer than what we are used to in industrial society. When a hunter comes back to camp, he will put down whatever he got during his trip. And usually his wife or some female relative of his will cut the meat and give it away to other people. All the food produced is shared by all in camp. Never would a man keep food for himself. You catch a 5-pound fish, and I catch exactly the same kind of fish, 5 pounds also. I cut it in half, you cut yours in half. I give you the tail of mine, you give me the tail of yours. Well, in purely economic terms, we're not better off after than before. In social terms, we're much better off afterwards. We've exchanged, we're in a relationship. I know that you give me food, and you know me as someone who gives you food. What we see here is a group of about 40 people. That is to say, it's not an ongoing society. I mean, in order to survive socially, you need a group of, well, I don't know, we can argue on this figure, but it's more or less 400 people. Within this group, you can intermarry, you can exchange goods, women, etc. Mind you, this group of 40 could survive as a group of 40 if they had around them other groups of 40 forming a total unit of more or less 400. They probably had that 10 or 15 years ago, and they could carry on living. Now what happened is that the routes of communication to the other groups have been cut. They can no longer move. They're trapped. This land here, this savanna and this forest, can be occupied by anyone who just comes in one day, starts working, has to fence the area he wants, and it is his by law. And now he can sell it, he can rent it, he can do what he wants with it.
Bueno, ahorita mire, le vamos a echar una respa que la colien. Ya está aquí bueno, ¿no? Sí, ya está aquí bueno.
I mean, if there's a law somewhere saying that the Indian has a right to this land, who's going to expect one of the Cuiva to sue someone in court and go to Bogota and claim his rights?
Hey.
It's quite usual for these people, to move camp after about 4 or 5 days. But I think in this case, there's also the fact that they have been worried for quite some time by the fact that the settlers are close to this area. There's also the fact that the film crew in the last few days has been bothering them.
Hey.
I went through the same experience when I first came to the area. And when they left, I left with them. And after a while, they realized, I suppose, that I was not here for raping women or stealing them. And finally, everything settled down. They carry very little. They travel very light. I came in with all sorts of junk that we always carry around. Things that I thought were necessary, medicine and whatnot, clothing, etc. And, well, after some 17 or 18 months of living here, I travel as light as they do. And I'm much happier about it. It's much easier to do that.
Only 1 year ago, Don Vicente, a white settler, came up the Agua Clara and staked his claim to Indian territory. Now, the land which he's burning, and which he'll soon start to fence, marks for the present the frontier between the Indians and the whites.
What signs of the Indians have you seen here?
No, candelas ahí arriba.
Fires over there.
Sí, allá, arriba.
And when have you seen these fires?
No, se ve así para este tiempo de ahorita de verano.
At this time,
Que cuando
in the summer,
pales secos le zampan candela todo eso.
they set fire to the grass when it's dry and burn all that area over there. Is it true they kill people over there and have killed some friends of yours?
En tiempos pasados, sí.
In times gone by, yes, but quite a long time ago. But over there, the Indians killed a family. Why have you got so many dogs? Because they warn me if anything's approaching my ranch, no matter whether it's a person, an Indian, or an animal, a jaguar or something like that.
Sea una persona, sea un indio, sea un animal, un tigre, un león, cualquier animal así.
So you are frightened of the Indians here?
Pues miedo siempre.
Frightened, yes. You've always got to be on your guard because they're dangerous. They're fierce, are they? Yes, they're fierce. And would you like the Indians to come and work here for you?
Claro. Ahora tiene uno quien le ayude.
Yes, certainly. One is glad of any help one can get. What have you got to encourage them to come here?
Ay, aquí lo que hay es sal, que es lo que más atrae a ellos. Lo más que les gusta.
Salt. We have salt. That's the thing they'll come for. That's what they like best. When they get hold of salt, they eat it just as we eat sugar or sweets.
Downstream and closer to the white settlements, another group of Cuiva have already tasted the salt.
Five years ago, these people were more or less in a similar situation to the group living on the Agua Clara that we just visited. I mean, they had no clothes, very few cooking pots, and they had very little contact with the outside world. And I think it's not exaggerated to say that these people here represent, in a sense, the Agua Clara people 5 years later. If you ask the Cuiva, what is the role of the woman, what is the role of the man in society, they will tell you that the men are the hunters. The men are the only ones killing animals. Women are the fruit collectors. They will tell you that the men bring the meat in to camp. The woman will cut it up and will cook it. And there's a very long list of the things that men should do, that women should do. Very, very often I found that what happens is that the territories for fruit collecting and for hunting are very, very close physically. The man will hunt on the side bank or on the lake or in the water. The woman will collect the fruits of the vegetable very, very close to the water. So they go together, they do the traveling together. The amount of hours a day that a man spends in very close company to his wife is amazing. I mean, there's no story about going off at 8:30 in the morning to the office and coming back at 5:30 in the evening. And you see the wife when you go and you see her when you come back. It's like if the wife goes to the office with you, in other words. We cannot believe for 1 minute that people can run their lives without having someone who's responsible somewhere for what we're doing. May it be socially, the police or the judge or prime minister or something, or may it be religiously. There must be a God somewhere who's watching us, and he's the one responsible, and he's the great authority, and he's going to punish us. And these people don't have that. I mean, every man is responsible for himself. I've been asking myself for quite some time, why are these people nomadic? Especially since I've become convinced that they could survive physically if they stayed at the same place, if they were sedentary. So I've listed up reasons given for leaving a camp. There must be hundreds of reasons. Probably the most beautiful one, to me anyway, is when they say, oh, we've seen this camp for too long now. Let's go and see somewhere else. They travel very, very frequently by any standard of comparison. For example, last November, we made 47 camps, and we have slept in 27 different places. I think one of the main reasons why they move constantly like that has to do with taste. At any moment, you will have different sources of food in different parts of the territory. In other words, they will be in a camp exploiting one source of food, and then somebody will say, oh, it would be good to eat another fruit. And if everybody agrees, well, then they just pack up and go. I've calculated that between the moment when the decision to move is taken and the moment when all the canoes are floating on the river, when they've left the camp, it takes between 5 and 7 minutes.
Ya viene para acá otra vez. Yo creo que arriba le queda cortito. Pero no mire la máquina todo el tiempo, mejor no. Para lá.
Cattle rancher and horse breeder Gabriel Gonzalez has lived in the Llanos for 25 years. He's one of the old pioneers, and when he first reached the plains bordering the river Meta, no one lived here except the Indians. Now, these grasslands are fenced and owned by the llaneros, some with thousands of head of cattle which roam the same territory the Cuiva once hunted. Today, the scene has changed, and it's Don Gabriel who allows the Cuiva to camp on his land.
What do you think of the Cuiva Indians?
Los indios cuivas, los de aquí,
The Cuiva Indians round here should be put on a ranch of their own.
era que los pusieran una granja o les dieran un pedazo de tierra para que ellos trabajen.
They should be given a piece of land so that they can work,
Prácticamente ellos son mansos.
because they're more or less civilized, but even so, they still don't work.
Yo no puedo certificar de que sí los matan, porque como les
I
digo, a mí
can't
no
say
me
whether the llaneros really kill Indians, because I have no
Lo que
proof of it.
pasa es que cuando los indios hacen mal,
What happens is that when the Indians are making a nuisance of themselves and our people are out rounding up their cattle, some people say that the llaneros have gone out shooting Indians. But still, there is trouble, isn't there?
hombre, quién sabe por allá por las aguas claras arriba.
Who knows? Up there on the Agua Clara River, I've heard it said that they're vicious, that they're digging their heels in. Up there, certainly, there is some trouble between the whites and the Indians.
Dicen que para arriba, por las aguas claras arriba, hay una indiada que
They say that high up on the Agua Clara River, there's a group of Indians who are still completely wild. What do you think of those Indians high up on the Agua Clara?
completamente animales, porque ellos
Just like animals. They don't wear a stitch of clothing. They're completely naked, naked like any animal. I've seen them like that, completely naked, like a horse or a cow.
un caballo, una res.
Baju tim ni. Mulai. Apa dah semua akhir. Ini mu thai. Ini hui baru. Mulai je. Ah. Ngoh na.
Like anybody else, the Cuivas have neighbors. Now, there is a certain procedure to follow when there is an immediate contact that will be made with another group. What the Cuiva will do is take all their belongings and put them away in the forest. In other words, hide them from your neighbors who are coming to visit you. This is not because you're stingy and you don't want to give to them, but it's because you prefer talking to the man first and introducing what you have slowly in the course of the conversation. According to the laws of economics ruling these communities, if all the goods were in view of the neighbor, he could just come in and say, well, look, you have this and that and that and that. And you would be a very stingy man if you don't give him quite a lot of what you have. So if the other man doesn't know exactly what you have, you run a lesser risk of being an antisocial.
We are out.
Aja. Nanti woi hu.
Bây giờ này ta đi bắt tan mà. Quay à. Abung ko đi. Tanto pia cara tu ba. Ya ai. Ha. Ya pe pa hit pa se pe pa ho hi pan har pa mana. Pe pa ho hi pan pe ta bi ho hi. Ya pe pa ho hi ya pe pa ho hi pan. Ya tab.
Atau si Vietnam में
Hay na.
हाँ aku tak ada itakin nerjauh deh
Hay na.
हाँ
Muka tere ham itu yahi.
hey
Muka itu yahi.
hey no
Ah. Bai tha kamu hết vậy. Pakai jahe kira. Mau dia nak jual, atau kau siapa kakak? Saya kan nak buat nak jual, nak jual. Pak. Ya, pernah weh. Ya betul. Bisa pernah weh nak jual, orang nak pernah weh macam.
Traders come up on the river to sell to the settlers the goods that they need. Now, the Cuivas come into contact with these traders, and they also want to obtain these same goods. Now, to get these goods, they must buy them. And to buy them, they must get the money. And to get the money, sometimes they might sell the trader a hammock or meat, or sometimes even a canoe. But most of the time, to get this money, they go to a farm and work for a farmer. And this is where they get into real close contact with the other culture.
Pero vivita estás bicha. ¿Y la puñaleta en el negro?
Dígame, le metiste cuchillo y pico. Como que hay que sacar cosas, ¿no? Es que no se ha muerto. Bajita, bajerita.
Con el cacho, ¿yo? Yeah. Well.
To the Indians, animals which roam the land are game and free to be hunted. But to the llaneros, who have cleared and fenced this land for grazing, their cattle are their livelihood. Miguel Espitia arrived in the Llanos in 1958. He'd fled from the violencia, the civil war which ripped his hometown. He had no money, so first he worked for rich landowners. 5 years ago, he bought this ranch. Now, he owns 1,000 head of cattle and more than 8,000 acres of land. In the past 2 years, the population of this region has more than doubled, with truckloads of people pouring in from the central highlands of Colombia.
I have, in fact, quite a lot of sympathy for these people. I've been here long enough to see what their conditions of life are. You have small colonials coming in alone with very little money, working very, very hard to start their farm, cut the forest, have their cattle, and make a living. These people seem to be pushed away, in fact, from other areas of the Llanos by economic and demographic pressure. They're pushed out of other areas. They have to come here. Otherwise, it's for them it's the slums of Bogota or the slums of somewhere else.
¿Qué tal?
A la raya, sí, toda por lado del pelo. Y la...
Should Cuiva come to visit these settlers, he would normally, expect to be given his own equal share of the food and his own equal share of everything these people own. That, to him, would be the normal way to behave between human beings. Now, from the settler's point of view, he cannot, of course, give away all his food and give away everything that he owns. He is part of the Colombian economy, the Western type of capitalistic economy. And on the other hand, the Indian who comes in, who sees the man not giving him his food, not giving him his belonging, begins to view the settler as a very uncivilized person, as someone who is even dangerous for society, someone who do not respect the rules. This is a situation where two cultures, two economic systems, in this case, which are based on perfectly opposite sort of basic proposition, are put into contact with one another. So if they're going to live together, one of the two has to change. This is where the Cuivas originated. The whole of Cuiva society, every man, woman, and child came out of this hole to populate the world. Now this site has been taken over by the whites, has been fenced off, is now part of a farm, and is a grazing ground for cows. Drugs are probably the most difficult parts of the Cuiva culture for me to describe or to try explaining it. I remember in the very first months of research, I would slowly start asking this sort of question like, what is it all about and what does it do for you? And the answer I would get all the time is, well, first, you will know when you take it. And secondly, well, if you take it, you will know. You see what I mean? To take the drugs is to know. Knowledge. I think it's probably at the very core of this whole culture.
They killed my father and took away my brother. I don't know what they did to my brother. Maybe they took him far away. Maybe he stopped crying a long time ago. It was in a canoe at night. They had a torch. I escaped. I was only a child then. I jumped into the water. My father drowned. He was covered in blood. They caught my brother. He cried, "Daddy, they've grabbed me." I don't know where he is now. My brother was the same age as the little boy over there. I escaped by jumping into the river. It was deep there. They had shot my father in the eyes. You know my niece? They killed her husband, his brother, and her brother. My niece lay in the bottom of the canoe while they beat her up with a stick. They beat her up. They hit her while she was lying in the canoe. The whites killed her husband, the father of her child. The new husband is only the uncle of that child. There are many whites. They killed Sinaru and Tate. Only my niece escaped. Sinaru and his brother were left there. They didn't take their bodies, just cut them up. They killed all of them on this river, right here. It happened on this river. My son and I lay at the bottom of the canoe. My aunt had the baby on her back. The others jumped off the canoe. The whites killed Tate, my uncle. They killed Sinaru, my husband. They cut up his body, cut his arms off, opened his belly. He was like this. They used a knife. They chopped off one leg, then the other. The other canoes paddled off and some people jumped into the river. I was shot. The bullet stayed in my skin and it hurt for many days. They hit me on the head. I was crouching down at the bottom of the canoe, trying to protect myself. I stayed there. The injuries hurt for a long time.
The center of the white man's culture is Cravo Norte, and the Indians come here to work. But the world in which they find themselves offers little they can understand. They're outsiders, and they work for the llaneros often with no payment except alcohol.
Sometimes I wonder how these people can carry on like this. I mean, especially when they come to a small village like Cravo Norte, where they will camp across the river, and they will camp only to the village to work for the whites. And maybe part of the answer might come from the fact that when a Cuiva dies, one half of his soul returns to create another Cuiva, while the other half goes away to create a white man. For example, the death of an old Cuiva will create an old white. A pregnant Cuiva will create a pregnant white. The death of a baby Cuiva creates a white baby.
No la que no chinchorre, mijo.
Téngala duro.
Duro. Eso sí, no. Que usted le da así, no le dé.
Con cuidado porque estilla. Tú.
esta es la navaja. Hombre, el hombre me volvió malo para esto, que no, hombre. Eso sí, eso sí. Eso es.
No, lo tiene usted. ¿Usted tiene cera?
Bueno, lo que hacen, voy a estar pendejeando ahí, hombre, estoy cansado, yo aquí mismo tiene asado, usted, hombre.
No.
¿Sería?
No.
¿No sería?
Ese carajo está presentado ahí.
Está caliente, Daniel, mala.
Esta es la que calienta, esa que está arriba es la que...
Vamos, gallo pajizo, una picadita lejos, gallo pajizo, Llena de 40 Llena 20 goles. Pique gallo pajizo, carajo. Pique gallo pajizo.
There's more than one way to kill the Indians. You can kill them the obvious way, with a gun. Or you can kill them in a more subtle way. Some of the settlers around here, I've killed them physically. Most people around here, and the missionaries, will try to kill them culturally, more slowly, in sort of a torture. If you bring in all these goods, European goods, foreign goods to them, if you try to convert them to a sort of Christian ethic, what you might end up with is a dead culture. You will actually have killed the culture. And I say you would have killed the Cuiva, because there shan't be any more Cuivas, they will be Colombians then. They would have been integrated into the lowest level of the Colombian lowest class. To me, to kill them physically or to kill them culturally are just two sides of the same coin. There is no objective criteria which would allow us to judge if these people were better off before, or if they're better off with clothes, undernourished, working for settlers in the area, discovering prostitution and alcoholism, and being converted to the evangelical faith. Then I can only give you my very personal opinion. But I think the whole question is a bit futile, because the need for all the foreign goods has been forced upon them. And it would be just as horrible to say to them, well, put your clothes away, you were much better off before, and go back to the woods and forget about the rest of the world. I only hope that when they find out that their old culture had some answers to the problem of living in this environment, and that the new culture is nothing more than a different set of answers, and maybe that the old answers might have been better than the new ones. I only hope for them that when they realize that, they will not realize that they have forgotten most of the old answers.